Hi, good evening, everyone. So, my name is Sakshi, and I'm a part of LegalEdge team. Today, I have three amazing students from NLS Bangalore who would be giving us inputs regarding their preparation for CLAT and all other law entrances. So, let's just welcome them. We'll start with you, Aman. Hi, Aman. We have Aman
Hello,
Patidar.
everyone.
Yeah, we have Anand Kaur Mehta. Hi, Anand.
Hi everyone.
Yeah, and we have Krishanu Paul. Hi, Krishanu.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah. So, without wasting any time, let me just move on to the first question to all three of them. Also, I would like to tell you guys that they have prepared for the CLAT and all other law entrances while they were giving their 12 boards. So, along with the schools, they have the school curriculum, they have managed to prepare for CLAT. So, my first question to them obviously would be, how did they go ahead about it? Obviously, as you guys know, that school curriculum anyway is very tough. Boards have a different kind of pressure, and obviously your parents anyway would want you to score real well in boards before you move ahead with any sort of entrance exam or whatsoever. So starting with Anad, how did you go ahead with your preparation?
Right, so I started my GLAD preparation from 11th itself. So I had started working on English and quant, maths. It was maths then. So I started working on those questions from 11th itself. And in 12th, since the pressure of boards was there, so I made sure that I devoted at least 2 hours for CLAT or ALET preparation each day. So in those 2 hours, I had already prepared a list of all tasks that I had to do, and they were not there was not a lot of work to do. However, I would note down the questions which, for example, I was getting stuck on in mocks, and then I would note down the topics, for example, critical reasoning questions or legal reasoning questions, and I would prepare a list of those tasks. And only for 2 hours, I would sincerely work on my shortcomings and on those questions, and then I would devote the rest of my time after school to school assignments, projects, and studying for boards.
Okay, moving on to you, Krishanu.
So the thing is that I started preparation from 11th as well, but I didn't really do it seriously in 11th. So by the time I got to 12th, I realized that there was a substantial gap between my position and the position of the top students in our batch, in the batch which would give CLAT along with board exams. Uh, in other places. So I realized that since I hadn't prepared well in 11th, I'd have to devote um, a greater amount of time to CLAT in 12th than what others did. So, consistently throughout the entire academic year of 2019-20, I spent around 4 hours on CLAT because I had essentially nothing done till that point. So, you know, I did GK every day for at least 2 hours, and I did other subjects on a rotation every day, every week. So in the end, I think that if you don't prepare well in 11th, or if you don't prepare in 11th at all, you'll need to prioritize CLAT. You'll need to make a decision, because since you've already spent some time without preparing for CLAT, if you really want to get into a good college, you'll need to take a call, and taking a call might be hard, but at the end of the day, if you're really aiming for CLAT, your board marks will not be nothing but a certificate in a frame. It's not something you'll use to put a food on your plate, right? And so I knew that, and I had to make the decision, and I did okay in my boards, but I decided to focus more on CLAT.
Yeah, so like honestly said that you did not focus a lot while you were in 11th. But yeah, I would differ here a bit that do not take this advice very seriously that you shouldn't be preparing for your 12th board, because it's always like that, that if you actually start ignoring it, that ignorance results in a lot of damage rather than like striking a balance where you are able to score in a decent manner in your board exams, along with your able to actually score well in your other entrances as well. So yeah, let's move on to Aman. Let's see.
So I had science in my 11th, just to
Oh
clear
yeah,
things
nice.
out.
I
I had
too
science
had
in
the
my 11th,
same.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and that was completely out of my interest in science. I always knew that I don't want to have a career in science, and I want to have a career in a field that is not that much sought after, like law or journalism. I always knew I wasn't made for science, as they say it. But I took science anyway for my sheer interest, and that's why I didn't find it very difficult to navigate through science. And that is one thing that helped me a lot in handling the course load, as you say, that things can get very difficult in class 12, especially after the transition from class 10th. But if you do something that interests you, then it's not very hard to navigate through things. Now, talking about boards in specific, boards traditionally have been comfortably predictable. So if you have like devoted consistency, if you have devoted your efforts consistently throughout the year, if you have attended classes, if you have made good notes, if you have read NCRT books, nothing more, NCRT books, and if you just solve maybe 5, 6, 10 past year papers, you are good to go for boards. You don't have to like devote a lot for boards. Now, this allowed me to devote a majority of my time for CLAT preparations, especially on my reading and general knowledge. Of course, the pattern changed midway during the preparation, which required calibration on my part. But just because I was always putting in some efforts into boards consistently, it wasn't very hard for me at the end to cope up with it.
Nice, nice. So, as Aman mentioned that the pattern has recently changed, so you guys were the first one to go ahead with the change in pattern, which suddenly like it became a very lengthy, too much hard on the reading part for the entire exam. So, how did you guys cope with this? Like, I'm sure when you would be in 11th and preparing, there would be much more questions which were one-liners or like principal facts and were not that lengthy. And suddenly the pattern changed and everything was like a complete different thing. So how did you guys go ahead with that? Krishanu, shall we start with you?
So the thing, the primary difference between the previous pattern and the new one is that um, in the previous pattern, we did not have to prepare separately for the different primary law exams, right? Most people want to give IELT and CLAT, but to get most people who give CLAT want to give IELT as well. But now with the new system for CLAT, we needed to devote separate time and we needed to give additional effort to for preparing for the two exams together. And the difference in CLAT is now is that it will require quicker reading. So I think the primary skill which I had to learn is to skim through paragraphs and pick out important points. For example, earlier the English section in the CLAT exam could be done in around 30 minutes, but after in the first months after the change, it started taking me around 40 to 45 minutes. So you need to, I started getting used to the quick reading principle, and uh, I took help from other, there's a lot of, there's a lot of material out there that helps with quick reading, and I went through that and, going through long paragraphs and sifting out important information. And so I think by the time the CLAT actually came around in September, I believe, September, October of last year, I managed to do the English section in around the same time it would take it would take in the previous system of CLAT. So I think quick reading and additional devotion of and devoting additional time for preparing for IELT are the two important things which we needed to keep in mind.
Okay, so before I move on to the next two of you going ahead with the preparation for the new pattern, I would like Krishanu to tell me one more thing that can you point out certain reading material that help you grace this entire situation of taking a lot of time in a particular section and then actually moving ahead? Because I'm sure a lot of students who are would be watching this and later on going through this video would want to know how to go about it, because this is one question that I have received for the right entire 1 year, and they keep asking me the same thing again and again: how to go ahead with the reading speed, how to go ahead to like skim through the passage. When we skim through the passage, we actually miss out on very important information, and while we solve the questions, we are like completely blank. So, Krishanu, like, would you like to give some input or maybe some material or sources that you referred and that actually helped you here?
So a lot while I started researching for how to quicken my reading speed, a lot of sources asked us to go through editorials and newspapers. But I would actually advise against that, because editorials and newspapers and things like that aren't very factually dense material, which is unlike the paragraphs and passages which we will be presented with in CLAT. So I intentionally went through material which was dense and difficult and not very interesting to go through, because you need to train your attention span and you need to train your ability to pick out facts from things which are not important. And reading editorials, I don't think really helps with that. So what I used to do was, we had I was a humanities student and we had sociology, and sociology was a dense subject uh, with with paragraphs which are fact heavy and uh, which needed things to be picked out from them. So I went through them repeatedly, and that's one way in which I trained. Other good sources would be to read academic articles, short academic websites, and things like that. Primarily academic articles. That's what I'd suggest, rather than newspapers and other leisure material.
Okay. Anand, yeah, you tell me, how did you go ahead with the preparation for the new pattern, and also like what are things you did to manage the reading speed and the comprehension skill, like to polish your comprehension skills?
Right. So the first thing that I noticed with the new pattern was that there was a big drop in my mock scores. Right. So I'd started preparing from 11th, and I'll be honest, I topped most of my mocks because I got used to that pattern and that preparation. But when the new pattern came, there was a big drop, and when I say big, it was enough to shatter my self-esteem. Right. And it is very difficult to motivate yourself to start working anew, right? And after 2 or 3 mocks, I realized what sort of preparation is needed, how I need to work on my, for example, reading skills or time management, and then I worked accordingly. So uh, two sections which were my weakest sections were quant and critical reasoning, right? So quant had always been a sore spot for me, and I started with R.S. Agarwal because the quantitative techniques book, it has certain it has certain statistical questions, so on and so forth at the very end. So I started with the basics because I'd forgotten maths because I had arts in +1 and +2. So I started with that, and slowly I did 5-10 questions each day to build make myself familiar with quantitative techniques. And after that, I started looking for tougher questions. So I slowly built on my quant techniques. For critical reasoning, again, most of my questions were wrong because it's so subjective and there's a different approach to each of the questions. So I started with the fundamentals again. So I started with weakening arguments, strengthening arguments, all of those topical questions. I looked at the basics, and then I moved on to the tougher questions. So I think you need to give yourself that time and space. If, for example, you're preparing now for CLAT 2022, you need to give yourself that time to work on those sections and do not worry about what kind of sectional scores you're getting at the moment. Because if you work consistently on certain questions, you're going to see that jump or that boost in your mock scores, right? So consistency is key. And more than consistency, I will say it is motivation. And it ultimately depends on your passion for CLAT, how hard you want to work and how much effort you want to put in for CLAT. And if that is in place, then, and if you're motivated, then preparation is easy. Trust me. And for the reading part, I think I never had a problem with reading because I've always loved reading books, and I've always loved reading newspapers as well. So it's difficult for me to empathize with individuals who find it very tough to read or to like quicken their reading skills. But something that I would suggest is, like Krishanu said, that academic literature does help. But if your reading skills are like not great, I'll say average or poor, right? If your reading skills are in that range, start from editorials. Now, why does starting from editorials help? Because it makes you familiar to certain issues which do come up in CLAT. For example, I can tell you that there was one passage in CLAT which was a direct editorial from the Hindu. It was written by the editor of the Hindu, and I remember the exact passage because I had paid so much attention to my editorials whenever I was reading the Hindu, right? So start from the Hindu, make yourself familiar with the current issues that are going on, the language that is usually employed in such passages, after you're comfortable reading the editorials, then move on to tougher literature, right? Then move on to more factual paragraphs or something that you get in mocks. So that is when you will be more comfortable solving those questions as well, and it will not be a shock to you every time you go ahead with a reading comprehension passage. And for reading comprehension, please note that you have to prioritize. You do not have the time to solve each and every question, right? So skimming through serves two purposes, right? First of all, it helps you to know how much time you're going to take in solving that passage. Second, it helps you know whether you can solve that passage or not. Whether, after skimming through that passage, you're able to get the central argument or not. So skim through the passage in the first 5 or 10 minutes, get to know the gist of it, and decide for yourself whether you can leave it or not. So that will be my tip for solving reading comprehension passages.
Nice, Anand. Aman, any input that you would like to give us here?
Yeah, so as highlighted, with the changed pattern, CLAT is now more about reading and comprehension than about single line questions and application of those. So now with CLAT with changed pattern, you have to read a lot first of all, and you have to read for long. Like if you look at CLAT and the distribution of questions, you'll realize that there are three sections which are completely based on reading: the English, critical reasoning, and legal reasoning. Then you have GK. Now, of course, GK and maths may not require that much reading, but again, maths may have some sort of questions which may require reading. So if you see, a lot of questions are based on reading and your ability to comprehend and then apply in questions. So with the change pattern, CLAT is now more about a test of skills than about test of a subject or a topic. Now, for this, we need to practice what we need to perform, right? So, to do this with as the pattern changed, I too had to calibrate my preparation. And for that, initially, when the change pattern came to effect, like we knew that the pattern was going to change, I practiced with time. Now, this is something which helped me a lot because there is one criteria which you can fit into to gauge where your reading speed and your ability is, and that is how much you can read in 1 minute, so words per minute. If you check your reading speed, that is a good criteria to tell you whether you would be able to solve all the questions of that or not. I would suggest a reading speed of around 250 or 300 words per minute would do the job. And initially, I had less. I had around 170, 180 words per minute. So I knew that I had to work a bit on my reading speed. Comprehension, I didn't suffer a lot. So I worked with my speed. Of course, reading with time helped me a lot, at least initially. And then as I got comfortable with it, I stopped measuring time whenever I practiced questions. Thirdly, I would disagree with Krishanu on the point that editorials are not that important because Consortium too has highlighted time and again that newspaper reading is one of the best practices that aspirants can have to prepare for CLAT and its questions because a lot of passages will come from these newspapers or prominent sources. So, yes, reading newspapers, reading editorials is a very good exercise, at least in my opinion. So, yeah, that are all my inputs on the point of reading.
I think to sum up with what all three of you gave us, kind of input. So somebody who's starting to prepare right now should be starting with editorials, just to get comfortable with the language, the vocab. I am sure a lot of you might be facing trouble regarding this, and gradually you should be moving to certain articles which are more academically rich as compared to the editorials, so that you have best of both the worlds. If there's a passage which is pretty easy on a certain topic which is like very common, you would be able to solve that. And if you get a specific particular passage regarding, let's say, a particular issue in sociology or something like that, you would be comfortable to solve that as well. So it's always good to start with the newspapers, the editorials, and gradually moving towards the difficult part of the preparation. And definitely, as Aman pointed out, reading with a timer does help you understand like how much you're able to read and where you have to go ahead with your preparation. Okay, so moving on from here, from the reading speed and in general the comprehension skills, how about the current affairs preparation? So current affairs is something that is so vast that there is like no end to it. You keep reading about it, you keep like referring to different magazines, different books, and still there would be a situation in a mock or some test where you might come across a question which you have completely no idea about. And I'm sure everyone here would have faced that situation. So how did you guys go ahead with that? Like, what did you do along with your boards and your school curriculum, making sure that your current affairs or the legal current affairs does not suffer? So, Krishanu, shall we start with you?
Sure. So, ma'am, for I'd like to address the second question which you highlighted first, in that there will inevitably be questions which you don't know the answer to a particular question. However, what I would look for in such questions is that, do I know that a particular option within that question is not the answer? And if I can remove these options, if I can remove, say, two options, then I would attempt the question, because I have a 50% chance of being right. So if I know that a particular option is not the answer, I'll if I know one or two options are not the answer, I'll attempt the question. And if I don't, then because the negative marking is a real detriment even in the paper when when it accumulates, I would skip that question. And when it comes to preparation, I believe I did prepare intensely for CLAT. And one of the most important things which I did was prepare notes monthly and according to topics. So now that a week before CLAT is when I focused intensely on these notes which I had prepared, and I believe that really helped out in the actual exam, both CLAT and other law exams. So I think this note making was important, and uh, I think here I didn't go through any books. I didn't go through any sites. I didn't go through any news sites as such. I regularly went through Diksha IAS, which is a free news site which regularly conveys information, and it's a really good site. Really gives details, and I went through material which my coaching had provided to me, and I use these intensive materials because I thought that and I do think that these materials allow you to cover a greater expanse of topics in a shorter amount of time, because there is no unnecessary words or unnecessary sentences included in them, and they cover the realm surrounding a particular topic. They're meant for competitive exams. So I think that's something which should be kept in mind.
Aman?
Yeah, so I have 3 points to make. Firstly, as told by Krishanu, making topic-wise notes is very important. You cannot be making day-wise notes or week-wise notes because you need to revise them as well before the exams to be able to keep them in your memory and then uh, solve the questions in the examination. While making day-wise notes will create a lot of chaos and clutter at the end when you are revising it. So what making notes topic-wise does is it gives a structure to your notes. So for instance, if I select a random topic like space, so space, of course, firstly gives us ISRO. Then ISRO, we move to Chandrayaan. Chandrayaan, we move to Apollo. Apollo gives us idea about NASA. Then we move to SpaceX. SpaceX then helps us to move to Blue Origin. Blue Origin helps us to move to Virgin Galactic. So you see that we move from a general topic like ISRO to something which is extremely current, like Virgin Galactic, which Richard Branson just had a flight to space. Now, what relating different topics like this does is that it helps you memorize things and making connections. Making connections is very easy to memorize because if you tell a person 10 different things on 10 different pages and you tell them 10 related things on one page, a person is more likely to remember 10 related things on the same page, right? That's why storytelling becomes such an important skill as a lawyer as well, because stories are more potent to be remembered, and hence making topic wise notes is a great exercise. Secondly, diversification of sources. As CLAT is not a book based examination or course based examination, you have no idea where the questions are coming from. So the more you diversify your sources, for instance, the Hindu or the Indian Express, or I loved reading online articles as well. So I used The Wire, The Print as well. And Ash Krishanu who said Drishti IS is a great source. Jagran Josh is a great source. Or GK Today is a great source as well. So the more you diversify, the more in depth you go on a particular topic, the more chances you have to cover that topic from a 360 degree. Which brings me to my next point, that you need to be able to recognize which topics need your research and which topics don't. For instance, there is a robbery in Delhi. Not so important. You don't need to research a lot on it. But let's say something like Richard Branson's flight to space. It becomes important because it is a giant leap for humankind. And CLAT loves topics which has an influence over India or science or international affairs. So you need to be able to first of all recognize which topics are worth your time and which topics aren't. And this recognition will come once you have idea of reading newspapers. So for instance, some topics being repeated day by day in multiple editorials. So you know, oh wait, this topic is very important. But some topics just the newspaper touches and leaves, maybe not so important. And here comes consistency. So if you are consistent with your newspaper reading, you will have an idea about which topic is important for your GK preparation and which is not.
Yeah, nice. Anat, to you.
Right. So most of my points are similar to what
Yeah.
Krishanu and Aman said. Uh, One thing that you also need to keep in mind is that your mocks are a very important reference point for your current affairs, right? So when you're in plus two and you start preparing for CLAT, like if you start preparing for CLAT from your plus two only, you start making notes for current affairs, right? So in the beginning, you do not give so many mocks. But as you give more and more mocks, you start realizing that those mocks are focusing on certain issues. And even if those issues were repeated for at least a week, they're not asking the most common questions. Like they're not asking that, for example, so and so event took place on which date. They're asking particular static GK questions as well. So that assumes a lot of importance. Even in CLAT 2020, if you went through that paper, you would have noticed that even though we knew the event, sometimes we did not know the question because the question was so tangential and it was something that we could not think of. So we were confident after reading the passage that, oh, we know this. But like when we went to the questions, we were totally lost. Like what should the answer be, right? So that goes on to the larger point of while giving your mocks and while making your current affairs notes, when you're preparing for a certain issue, try to be very very thorough with it, right? Try to look at each and every detail of that question. What could possibly be a question from that topic? And for that, I think the new GK questions are very similar to UPSC examination questions because they actually test your in-depth knowledge of the current affairs issues. And for that, I used to refer to Insights IS. I used to refer to Vision IS and Drishti IS as well because they give detailed factual information about certain events. So if you think that at present your notes are not that detailed or are not really helping you boost your score in GK, you could look at UPSC current affairs preparation sites, or they have weekly compendiums and monthly compendiums as well. So you can refer to that as well. So that is going to add on to your current affairs preparations. Otherwise, whatever Krishanu and Aman said, totally valid and effective strategies.
Very nice, all three of you. So, the next question for you guys is, once you started with your mocks, okay, initially the mocks are very less, like once a week or twice a week or something like that. And eventually and gradually you move on to much more number of mocks. That also consumes a lot of time. So, were you guys all about just giving mocks and checking out the score? Or was there a second step that you took after your mocks, analyzing it, looking for the, wrong or right or the missed out questions? So was that, were there any particular practices that you followed which really helped you? Because I'm sure there would have been times where you would have scored really less in a particular topic or in a particular section. And gradually, obviously, you had to improve that part. So what are the practices that you go ahead with? So we'll start with Anand. Anand,
Right. So I did not really know how to analyze a mock. So I would just give a mock, be very happy. Oh, I scored like 100. Oh, that's amazing. And then I would just leave it at that. And then in the next mock, it would become 60. So that was the kind of fluctuation that I was facing during my preparation. So I looked up certain videos wherein mentors told us how to analyze a mock. And one thing that actually stood out was maintaining a mock copy. So in that mock copy, after giving your mock, devote 2 hours. It was said that devote 2 hours. Like I was still, I did not follow it to the fullest. I used to do it for an hour at least, like minimum an hour. But like if you can extend it to 2 hours, perfect. So maintain a CLAT copy or an ALET copy, like a mock copy. After giving the mock, go through each section, note down your score in each section, note down the wrong answers, especially for your GK section. Note down the wrong answer, note down the wrong questions, the answer, the extra information that has been given in the answer key. Make detailed notes of that particular question. And even if in the GK section there was a tukka and it was an intelligent tukka, right? Or it was like, it's still a right question, note down that question as well. Because it is probably a tough question that may be repeated in some other mock. So for GK at least, you need to have detailed notes of the mock questions. Then for critical reasoning, note down the logic that was given in the answer key for the wrong questions that you got. What was the approach that has to be followed while answering that question? Note all of that down in the copy. And for quant, solve the entire section again, because that is going to reinforce your technique, that is going to reinforce the formulas, and that is going to stay with you till the day you give CLAT. And that has worked for me, so I'm hoping it's going to work for all of you as well. So the CLAT or ALET mock copy is something that I would recommend to all of you after giving a mock.
That's really nice. We give something called MAC, like mock analysis copy at LegalEdge, just for like the students to maintain their mock scores and actually see the gradual progress, or maybe the deficit in their marks if they're not preparing well, if they're not going ahead with the proper preparation strategy. So yeah, that definitely helps. Krishano, would you like to give some input here?
Yes, so the method I adopted was that for the last 2 months of preparation, apart from the last week and a half, I used to give a mock every day, or maybe even sometimes 2 mocks a day. And what I used to do was that after giving the mock, I would check the answers given, and while checking the answers, I would attempt each question again, regardless of whether I got it right or wrong. I wouldn't check it then. I'd attempt the every question without a time limit, and immediately after finishing a question, I check the answer. This would help me know whether I couldn't solve a question, whether A, I solved a question by luck, B, whether because I'll be solving it again, and if I can't get it correct the second time, it means I need work in that area. B, it would let me know whether I couldn't solve a question because of the lack of time during an actual mock, or whether I just didn't have the concepts necessary. And three, it would let me, it would help, it would give another practice to the mock, and that's never a bad thing. You'll never lose out from practicing. So I used to do this. I practiced every question one at a time without a time limit again. And I think that really helped me because particularly in critical reasoning, quantitative aptitude and GK, because that helps you understand these three things. And once you highlight areas which you don't know, areas which you know but can't attempt because you're too slow, and areas which you don't know well enough to get it correct every time, you can work on them separately to different extents, and you can smoothen the gap in your preparation, and pave the road, cover all mud holes. So otherwise, I agree with what Anand said. Those are really important points. The maintaining a mock copy, getting noting down things which you consistently get wrong, and reinforcing them so that it stays in your mind till you actually give the exam. I think those are really important points, and I think that's it.
Nice. Amal?
Yeah, adding on to Krishanu and Anand, a mock not analyzed is completely waste because you
Yeah.
just know what your score is. You just know how many questions you got wrong, how many questions you got right, but you don't know why you got them wrong. You don't know why you got them right. Maybe a lot of them were flukes. But you would never know if you have never analyzed the mock. So mock analysis is a must. It must come together with mock and not separately. Now, secondly, when you sit and start analysis of a mock, what I used to do at least was start with topic wise analysis with a broad lens and not question wise. So for instance, you should be able to recognize certain patterns. Now these patterns can be section wise. So for instance, that oh my maths questions generally get wrong, or generally my legal questions get wrong. So I know where to work upon. The pattern can be question wise, question structure wise. So for instance, questions that have not in it are generally wrong. So I know that whenever I see a not in a question, I have to be careful. I have to bet in depth. The pattern can be topic wise. For instance, that oh, I get inferences questions wrong, or I get questions which are from grammar wrong. So I know that I have to work more on inferences and grammar. Once you have done this broad analysis, then go into question wise analysis, because the chances of a question repeating itself in CLAT are very less, but the chances of a broad topic repeating itself in CLAT is very high. So, for instance, there is one particular question that I did wrong. That should come secondary to the type of question that I got wrong, right? So once you are done with your broad analysis, then go into question wise analysis. That's all that I had to add to Kushal.
Yeah, wonderful. So here, because in this particular session, we are talking to the three of you who prepared your, law entrances along with the school. One particular thing that I would like to point out, that during your pre-boards, or especially the board exams, did you guys completely switch off from the CLAT IELTS preparation, or did you guys, kept actually, reading a bit here and there so that you don't lose the touch? Because at times it happens that you get so engrossed in your board exams that it becomes very difficult to make a switch from boards to CLAT or IELTS, or from CLAT IELTS to boards. So, like, what strategy did you guys follow? So, was it like completely switching off, or reading in between, solving few mocks, or like anything like that? So, Aman, shall we start with you?
Yeah, yeah. So during my pre-boards and just the time before my boards, I did not completely switch off CLAT preparations, especially the current affairs
Hmm.
portion. I was very consistent with current affairs. Now, preparing for current affairs was also helping me increase my reading speed and like maintaining the touch in my reading and comprehension. So that these areas, reading comprehension and current affairs, these were pretty good. Talking about maths, I reduced maths a bit, and that was completely on the grounds that I was getting good scores in maths. So I was getting confident that okay, maths I can handle, and secondly, I had teaching, so I was anyway confident about maths. But current affairs and reading, I didn't stop at all, and maths too, I didn't completely stop. I just reduced a bit.
Okay, Krishanu?
So I did stop. I stopped preparing for CLAT and IELTS around 20 days or 17, 16 days before the actual exam started. However, during the pre-boards and throughout the gap we get before boards, I continuously devoted around 4 to 5 hours for CLAT every day. And the reason I had to stop was that I knew that where I was in CLAT was a comfortable position, and I could safely move on to preparing for boards because I knew I needed to work on my boards, because I had kept my CLAT preparation at a comfortable position, but now I needed to ensure that since I am in that position, I could manage to work on my boards and to ensure that that goes well as well. So I stopped preparing around 16 to 17 days before the exam, and completely I didn't practice anything at all. I tried to keep up with GK sometimes, but that's not something on a remarkable level. I didn't do it regularly or anything.
Okay, Anand?
Right. So again, like I'd started devoting so much time to CLAT and ELIT that I did not perform very well in my pre-boards. So I had to work on my academics and my school assignments for a while. And so they used to be holidays, right, between pre-board exams. So you get 2 3 holidays, and sometimes you don't get any holiday, right? So like if there was no holiday, then I would entirely focus on the pre-board and on preparing for that exam. But if, for example, you have 2 3 holidays, or if you have a weekend, so devote at least 1 hour. Now, what that 1 hour does is that you can work on some questions, right, which you got in wrong in your previous mock, and you can also revise certain current affairs issues, or you can revise your notes. So 1 hour is going to help you maintain that link with your CLAT and ALET preparation, so that after your pre-boards, when you have that holiday period between your pre-boards and your boards, and when you pick up your CLAT and ALED preparation again, you do not feel alien to all of those subjects, and you just don't feel that there is again a drastic decrease in your mock scores, right? So maintain that link with a 1 hour preparation whenever you get time, but you shouldn't feel pressurized that you have to at all costs prepare for CLAT and ALED the entire day, even if you have pre-boards. Try to strike a balance, because pre-boards and boards are equally important along with CLAT and ALED, right? So maintain your focus on your pre-boards as well, but if you get time, do prepare for CLAT and ALED.
Nice. Okay, so one last question, and also the most important of all. Throughout your preparation, there would have been days when you felt real low, days when you scored real bad marks, and especially before your CLAT, because that was a time when pandemic started and the exams got postponing every now and then, and eventually it was conducted. So a lot of panic in general, a lot of anxiety. How did you guys cope with that? Because trust me, there are a lot of times when the student is well prepared, does know everything, is clear with all the concepts, good with the reading speed, good with accuracy, but that anxiety and the pressure of actually performing on the D day and actually coming out with flying colors is so bad that students do end up actually screwing up their entire exam at times. So how did you go, guys, actually work on this panic, anxiety, and made sure that this particular aspect of life does not affect your exam or your score in general? So Anand.
Right, so I can actually write a book on the on the days when I actually felt like giving up, because it was too much, right? The pattern had changed, we could not go anywhere, like, and we had to help out with household chores as well, and there was a disconnect. I could not find the motivation to study anymore, and there was also a little surprise called NLAT right in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah.
of like nowhere. And then I had such a pathetic score in that exam. And I saw all of my dreams shattering in front of my eyes. So it was a very dramatic, I guess, 2-3 months before the actual CLAT exam. So one thing that I learned is that, see, if you take anxiety and if you take stress, your paper is still going to go bad, right? But what will happen is you're going to waste your 2-3 months of your life as well. So you're going to stay anxious the entire day. You're going to give a very bad exam. Then you're going to feel anxious for another a week probably till the result comes, right? So what that is doing is it's disturbing your mental health, and it's not worth it. Trust me. So do not take, like, it's easy for me to say that do not take anxiety, because I am at the college where I wanted to be. So I'm coming from a privileged position, but even before the exam, even when I did not know which college I'm going to get into, I started becoming calmer. I started thinking that, okay, even if I do not get into NLS Bangalore, like, or even if I do not get into NALSA, I'm still going to get in some college, right? I'm still going to get someplace with my efforts, with the kind of work that I've put into my preparation, and I'm still going to make a career out of it. So once you are not afraid of the exam and what the consequences of the exam are going to be, I think the anxiety just goes away. And I was so chill at the time of giving my exam. I was just like very comfortable while giving the exam. I was just reading the passages and actually enjoying giving the exam. And that's the entire purpose of CLAT and ALED. You need to enjoy the process. You need to enjoy giving that exam. Do not make it a stressful assignment. That is just going to be do or die. Do not think about the exam in such a manner, and you're going to sail through it smoothly if you have that mindset.
Wonderful. Krishanu.
The thing with how to deal with continuous postponements is that, I've always, you have to accept it. You have to cope with it. So whenever that a news comes of a postponement, I used to think of it in a sense that now I have additional time to work on an area where I was not good at, because I'm sure that there are certain students out there who are, well-rounded in all areas, but I was not one of them. I had several glaring weaknesses, and even though there was a belief in me that even if the exams would have happened on that day, I would have gotten in, but I chose to see it as a way in which now I have the opportunity to make things better. So I now have the opportunity to seal my chances, and that may not necessarily be true, but lying to yourself in a situation like this really helps, because it helps you it helps you stay in a healthy state of mind. Because you need to delude yourself into working hard at that point of time, because though I've seen it happen with a lot of students, in that they were consistently above me in mocks in the initial period, but as time started going on, they started getting disheartened and they started letting up with their practice, and that led to them skidding down the ranks. So I think that is very important. You need to, even if you're not weak in an area, you need to manufacture this conception of weakness. Just create a desire to work. And while dealing with the exams, I'd like to suggest that throughout the preparation process, humility is very important. You need to look at the people who are above you. You need to look at the top score. You need to see how much ahead of you they are. And an interesting anecdote is that the people, when giving our mocks, our professors would usually tell us to disregard the people at a coaching center would usually tell us to disregard the first one to five people, because there were chances of cheating and things like that, because people used to score very high. But I chose not to look at it that way, because in a sense that creates a panic. It creates a desire, tense situation where you need to keep up with people who may be out there, who may be competing with you in that particular exam. Not there, nobody knows for certain. But on the day of the exam, you need to be confident in yourself, and confidence during the exam must be to the point of cockiness, in a sense that you are confident in yourself. You know that you can do this. That's the mentality I approached with. I looked at what I had achieved. I looked at all my previous mock scores. I looked at the position I was in, the my knowledge regarding CLAT and IELTS, and I realized that there is nothing I need to worry about. I know who I am. I know how much I've worked, and I need to approach this exam as something which is in it's my ball game. It's in my playing field, and I've been with this for a long time, and I can do this. So I think you need to adjust your mindset, even if it's fake and manufactured, to the particular situation. Because I know at least 10 students who scored much ahead, who scored in single digit ranks in mocks, but they didn't make it into a top college, because the panic and the stress during the exam really hinders your performance. So I think being in the correct mental state at different stages of preparation is very important.
I think the self motivation helps the most, because like you would have people around you who would motivate you for a while, but ultimately it's you who have to make sure that you are at the correct state of mind. Aman, how did you manage with the panic and the anxiety around the exams?
So both right off the bat, both Krishanu and Anand have answered the question beautifully. Just adding on a bit, I'll divide the question into two parts. So coping up with bad marks and coping up with anxiety and the fear, etc. So on the point of coping up with bad marks, you should be actually fortunate that it wasn't flat and it was just a mock. Like you have a mirror right in front of you before class, that where you are weak and where you need to work. So you should be actually fortunate for at least some of the low scores in mocks. And if you have consistently low scores in mocks, then again you should sit back and analyze where things are getting wrong, analyze the patterns if you're consistently getting low scores. But at the same time, there should be some gratefulness at the back of your mind that at least this is not flat and this is just a mock. On the question of coping up with anxiety, etc., I am a faithful person. I come from a faithful a family, so of course God and my family helped me a lot to cope with anxiety, with the fear, and I constantly things that were changing that were not in my control. I just left on God, that maybe God's will is that CLAT is going to be postponed. The pattern is going to be changed. We don't know what kind of questions are going to be asked. Things that are beyond my control, God handles it. Things that are in my control. I sit back, I plan things and I work on them. Also adding on to what Anand said, CLAT or these other entrance exams are not the end, right? You have been giving exams all your life, and you will keep giving exams all your life for the rest of your life as well. So detach yourself from the results and attach yourself more to the process. Enjoy preparing, enjoy maths, enjoy GK, enjoy reading, because the kind of material that you read on CLAT, it's really enjoyable. Trust me, the kind of uh, effect that has on the kind of human you are. Trust me, like Krishanu and Anand would agree that our CLAT preparations have helped us a lot in becoming an overall person. We now have sound knowledge of science, of international affairs, of history, and philosophy as well, so on and so forth. Also, repeating what Anand says again, because it was a great point that your preparation will remain the same, the circumstances will remain the same, the question paper will remain the same, irrespective of what your mental space is. So, if everything is going to remain same, the only variable is your mental space. And just think about it. If everything is same, who will perform better, a confident person or an underconfident person? Certainly, a confident person. So, with this, just keep motivating yourself. Have some goal, have some motivation that always pushes you to be better. That okay, I want to give flat, but I want to give it for this particular reason. I want to become the big thing in the legal industry. I want to earn a lot, whatever your motivation is. Because when the why is clear, the how and the what to do becomes very easy.
Yeah, nicely, beautifully answered. Okay, so we'll move towards the end of the session, and it was like amazing having three of you get to know all the insights of your preparation and a lot of tips, and also certain things which I keep telling my students all the time, but obviously coming from you guys would make it more important for them now. So thank you guys, thank you for being here, and it was really good to be a part of the session, and especially thanks to the IDIA team who could arrange this for us. So thank you. And anything that you would like to say before we end the session?
I would just like to thank IDIA and Top Rankers for arranging this session. Thank you for all of you for attending this session, and all the best. May you get what you're working for.
Yes, all the best to CLAT 2021 and
22.
2022
Yeah.
aspirants. Like, I hope you watch this video and you find it helpful. And also, do not take a lot of stress for the exam. As Aman said, it's not the end of the world. Be chill about it, and you'll do well. Okay? All the best.
Thank you.
On the point of being chill, this comes directly from the president of consortium. So if you know CLAT 2020, if you followed CLAT 2020, this
Yeah,
was the expression just chill. So just
definitely.
chill. If this comes from the president of the consortium, it has some authoritative value. Just chill. Don't
Definitely.
worry much. Don't stress much. Also, all our blessings are for CLAT and beyond, not just CLAT, because CLAT is not the end.
Nice. Okay, guys, so we'll end here, and thank you. Thank you again. Good night.